everyone, I'm Nitahone, and it is Friday, so that means it's time for another MTG Top 10. Normally, this series of videos looks back at the game's history, but as usual, when a new set comes out, I've been doing my full set limited review, and it has always kind of taken over my MTG Top 10 the week that the new set's coming out, which is Guilds of Ravnica. These are the 10 cards you most want to see in a pack one pick one scenario or in your sealed pool, and they are so powerful that they can pull you ahead from behind, and on their own they make you want to jump into their colors. To come up with this list, I tried to pick 10 cards that are better than the best uncommon in the set, which I think is Price of Fame. In the end, I only found 9 cards I would actually take over Price of Fame, so keep that in mind. This would sort of be number 10 on the list, but I wanted to talk about some other cards. And the number 10 on this list is actually a little below Price of Fame, and I would take Price of Fame above it. Now, let's see what number 10 is. At number 10, we have Nullhide Ferox, who is a huge creature with hexproof for the cost, and if you play it on turn 4, will often just run over your opponent. It does make it so you can't cast non-creature spells, but that's not hugely important, especially in green. I mean, sometimes you need to cast that removal spell. The good news is it can actually turn off that part of its ability. You can turn off the non-creature spell thing so you can cast a creature spell, but you're basically making your non-creature spells cost 2 more. You're also making your opponent's non-creature spells essentially cost 2 more because your opponent can pay 2 to turn off the hexproof. So it's an interesting card. It has a really cool design. I don't think it quite gets above Price of Fame, because of the fact that it does have downside, and it's going to be at its best on turn 4, but in the later part of the game, you know, it's just a big creature that can probably be double blocked. Sure, that's still a 2-for-1, which is nice, but I just don't see it as being as big of a bomb as the other 9 cards on this list. At number 9, we have a split card, Response and Resurgence. I like this card design a lot on basically all of these split cards. On one side, you have something that's sort of situational. On the other side, you have something that's really powerful, but also still sort of situational. On this card, the response side is just a really efficient removal spell, a removal spell that would be playable, like a B probably on its own, you know, a very high level playable. Adding Resurgence to it and giving you the option in the late game to cast this very powerful sorcery that gives you 2 combat steps and gives your creatures some powerful keyword abilities just makes this a really good card because, you know, if you have to use the removal part early, you're going to be happy, and if you get to cast Resurgence late, that means you're about to win and you're going to be happy. And I think overall this card is better than Price of Fame, although maybe just barely. Number 8, we have another split card. This one is Find and Finality. Like the other card, the cheaper half is also pretty good here. You get a 2-for-1. It returns 2 creature cards from your graveyard to your hand, but also like the other one, it's kind of situational. You aren't always going to have 2 creature cards to get back. The Finality half is essentially a board sweeper. It kind of reminds me of Dune Blast. It's not quite as good as Dune Blast, of course, but you can essentially make it so one of your creatures survives Finality if you have a creature with 3 toughness or more when you cast it. And sometimes you'll be able to save 2 creatures, like you already have a 5/5 in play, and then you save something else. Your opponent's creatures may survive the sweeping effect too, but it is going to kill the vast majority of creatures in this format, and you're going to win a lot of the time when you cast Finality because you get to hold on to whatever your best creatures are. At number 7, I have March of the Multitudes, which reminds me of Secure the Wastes. In some ways it's more powerful, in some ways it's less powerful. It's not quite as efficient as Secure the Wastes, but because it has Convoke, that may sort of be a wash. Being able to create all these creature tokens at instant speed that have lifelink is great. You can sometimes use it to sort of ambush your opponent. You can make like 6 tokens and suddenly block 3 of their creatures and kill them or whatever. You can also just use it at the end of your opponent's turn to make it so you can disrupt a board stall. Suddenly you have double the creatures you had before thanks to March of the Multitudes, and you can just go crazy. It's really, really strong, and despite being gold, I think it's worth first picking, and that's true of the other 2 cards we just looked at as well. At number 6, I have Light of the Legion. So being monocolored is an advantage in this format. Monocolored bombs are sort of breaking ties in this list because of the fact that they just are monocolored. I think this is roughly in the same neighborhood as the 3 cards we just looked at 7, 8, and 9. But because it's monocolored, I have it above it because there's a greater chance you'll be able to play it. Yes, this format has lots of good fixing, but it doesn't have enough that you can take a gold card over a monocolored bomb, which obviously these cards aren't going to be in the same packs very frequently, but just in case they are. But anyway, Light of the Legion is just a huge creature, but the fact that it's a huge and efficient creature isn't what makes it a bomb. What makes it a bomb is it also makes the rest of your board big too. It has Mentor, which can help you make other creatures larger, and it's a huge creature with Mentor, so it can mentor a lot of things. And when it dies, it also pumps all your white creatures permanently with +1/+1 counters, so chances are good that even if this dies, it's going to leave behind some value, and that's pretty important. At number 5, we have Trostani Discordant, which comes with a Anthem effect, and it makes 2 1/1 White Soldier creature tokens. That means that in total, you are getting 5/8 worth of stats for 5 mana. You're also pumping the rest of your board. The fact that they can return all your creatures you own to you isn't going to come up that much in this format, maybe on incredibly rare occasions. But the real value here is just the fact that it makes an army when it comes into play, and it pumps everything you already have in play, so it contributes a ton of damage to the battlefield for only 5 mana, and that's awesome. It's first pickable, one of the better cards in the set, obviously, being on this list. Number 4, I have Thief of Sanity. This is a really cool card. It's basically a Windrake, which on its own isn't enough to be a bomb. But even though it's a small creature that dies to basically everything, I think it deserves a spot on this list because what it does is absurdly powerful. It gives you the ability to steal cards from the top of your opponent's library, and then you can cast them later. It's not quite as good as drawing you a card every time it hits your opponent, but it's kind of close. You have better card selection than you would have with card draw, and yes, you do have to have the mana to play the spell so you don't get it in your hand right away. It sort of just floats around in exile until you can cast it. But the point is, it draws you a card every time it hits your opponent. You know, it also happens to mill your opponent a little bit, which probably isn't going to be relevant since you're drawing an extra card every turn anyway off of the Thief of Sanity. You're probably just going to kill your opponent before you mill them, but it does do that. It would be higher on this list if it had better stats, but obviously at 3 mana, it's absurd. If you play this on turn 3 and it doesn't die, you're just going to win the game. There's not really much else to say. At number 3, we have Aurelia, Exemplar of Justice. She's another big mentor creature. In her case, she's essentially a 4-mana, 4/5 flyer with Vigilance, Entrample, and Mentor. So she's like insanely efficient for 4 mana. On top of that, her ability to mentor things means she can make other creatures bigger, and her other ability doesn't have to target herself. She can target other creatures you have and sort of spread the love around if that's what you need to do. But on her own, the fact that she's a 4-mana, 4/5 with Flying, Vigilance, Trample, and Mentor is kind of absurd. Even though it's only on your turn, it's an incredibly well-costed card, and it's another card that if they don't kill it, they're probably just going to die. At number 2, I have Doom Whisperer. 5-mana, 6/6 with Flying and Trample is insane, and it has the ability to surveil just by paying life, so you can like mill your deck quickly if that's what you need to do, or you can filter your draws if that's what you need to do, in addition to beating your opponent down in the air with a 6/6. Not much more to say about it, but it is another monocolored bomb to make the list, and there aren't a lot of those around. At number 1, I have Dream Eater. I think it's even better than the Doom Whisperer, and this is because of all of the value it gives you. For 6 mana, you get a 4/3 with Flash and Flying, and obviously that's not great on its own. But what makes it good on its own is the fact that it bounces a non-land permanent when it comes into play. You can do this at instant speed, which opens you up to big blowouts when they're trying to use auras or they're trying to use combat tricks. It's just going to give you a huge amount of tempo while being a huge creature itself, and also helping you dig deeper into your library to find non-lands or whatever it is you need at the time. So in addition to sort of stabilizing your board and putting your opponent back on the board while you're also playing a huge creature, you also get to make sure that your next draws are going to work out okay. And for that reason, I do think it's the biggest bomb in the set. I think it barely edges out Doom Whisperer. I could definitely see by the end of the format them switching places, but there's no way Dream Eater isn't one of the 1 or 2 biggest bombs in the set. What it does is inherently powerful, and it just does so much for 6 mana that it's kind of absurd. So that does it for this week's MTG Top 10. Next week, I'll be back with my more normal MTG Top 10s. Although it will be October, so that means I will be delving into some Halloween-inspired top 10s starting then, and all the ones that come in October, so you have that to look forward to. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it and share it so others can enjoy it too. If you want to make sure you catch future MTG top 10s and draft videos and stuff, don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon and make sure you get notified anytime I upload new content. Thanks for watching.